Welcome to episode 11 of the Unvarnished Edit, where two friends talk about what it's actually like to live an adversity filled life. Be prepared to laugh, possibly cry, and swear along with us. This is Angie, and in today's episode, we discuss how we learned about setting boundaries and where we still struggle. We hope you enjoy. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
Good.
Remember a couple episodes ago we were recording and I said something like, "Oh, my Mondays are always good because we always record after my free weekend." Well, because of our schedule changes for this one, I had my
Yep.
daughter over the weekend, and oh my God. And I'm sure a lot of parents that hear this are going to understand and agree with this. We don't do sleepovers for a lot of reasons, mostly safety. But this
Yeah.
past weekend, it was a situation I knew was safe. I felt totally comfortable with. And so I made a rare exception. And I really think this is the first time I've ever sent her out to a sleepover. Ted told her, like, okay, I will turn my ringer on and turn
Yeah.
my volume up. If you need me overnight, you just text me and I'll come get you, right? Now, I always have my phone on Do Not Disturb. I do not like getting notifications from my phone.
Yeah.
So to have, especially overnight, to have my phone
Yeah.
on and my ringer on, and I didn't put my earplugs in, so I wasn't sleeping that great anyway, and I woke up at 3 a.m. from, of course, a nightmare because I always have
Hmm.
nightmares. And I decided to just kind of glance at the phone, and I saw that she had texted me at 1 a.m. And so I like fully wake up. I'm in like a panic. Oh my God, something's wrong. She had sent me a request to download a new app at 1 a.m. I was like, this child. If that is not the actual description of what it's like to be her parent, I don't know what else is. And I had told her my do not disturb is
Yeah.
not on, my earplugs are out, my ringer is up. And you still chose to send me an app request at 1 a.m. because, yes, I have
Yeah.
parental controls. She has to ask me for everything. And and then I was wide awake. I was just laying there, just like,
Oh,
could not sleep because that adrenaline of like seeing the text message.
yeah.
And so when I picked her up, I was like, girl, you have to consider more than just yourself. I'm not sure if you're aware of
Yeah.
this in your 12-year-old, barely formed brain, but did you think that that's what I wanted at 1 o'clock in the morning? Was like, and it was for that Finch self care app.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, this is the opposite of self care for you and for I, what you did to us last night. I was so pissed. So pissed.
Oh,
But you know what she said?
children
But
never.
can I have it? It's like, yes. Get finching. Get out of my face.
I have that. I was like, "Oh, no."
Yeah, well,
It is a good it is a good app,
yeah,
but awareness of, yeah,
yeah,
others.
yeah. A little bit. A little bit.
I wonder, I'm like, how old do you think they are when they actually develop that? Because
Not until this is off the top of my head. Not until they have a significant other that their lack of awareness negatively impacts their relationship.
ooh, that's a good one.
I don't think it's ever going to come from us. I think we can continually give the advice of, hey, you're not being aware of others, so
Yeah.
that when someone else calls them out on it, all of our advice lays on top of that. And they're like, oh, okay. Right. So I think it's
Yeah.
still like super valuable to tell them, obviously, but I
Yeah.
don't think the actual lesson will come from us.
Yeah. See, my kids are super aware of others,
Mhm.
but it's still of mine, and so I'm honestly wondering if this is really just part of our conversation today, which is boundaries, right? Of that kind of, like, always being on as a parent,
Yeah.
as a mom, and so even if the boundary has been set, mom will still override it.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I can still override it, and mom's gonna be like, "Alright. So, yeah, mom's gonna tell me, 'Hey, I shouldn't have sent that at 1 o'clock in the morning,' but ultimately, she's fine."
And ultimately, she gave me the app.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do think that. I do think that. I think boundaries, I'm not glad we're doing the boundaries.
Yeah.
but I am glad we're doing the boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a really important follow-up to our forgiveness episode. So if you're listening now and you haven't listened to forgiveness, you might want to give that a listen, which was like I think episode 9 and this is number
Yeah.
11. So you just have to go back
Yeah.
not that far
Yeah.
because one of the things that we touched on in that forgiveness episode that forgiveness without boundaries can be abusive, right? This is like not this is not an easy conversation. I am someone who knows a lot intellectually and theoretically about boundaries, but am just barely starting to get good at operationalizing them.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
guess maybe this is falls under the category of the obstacle is the way. The thing that I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about is probably the thing that I need to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that's how I felt about forgiveness too.
So
But,
strange.
I know, right? Um, so boundaries, if you did not learn boundaries growing up, learning what they are first of all,
Mhm.
and then implementing them in your life as an adult, especially if you're already a parent, is really quite difficult.
So
Right,
hard.
and I feel like yeah, I feel like I'm consistently learning about, "Oh, this is actually a boundaried event." Like, this is an event that needs to have some boundaries on it. And I typically don't realize it needs to have some boundaries around it until it takes me out in some way. Like I'm super dysregulated or, I've overdone it and my body is like, we're done. I get sick, something like that. I typically learn from the adverse effect that it has on my physiological body and my brain before I'm like, oh, I think I need to create some boundaries
Yeah.
here. So I think while we have this conversation, I think the first question is because a lot of people I don't think know what it is, but to you, what is a boundary?
I actually heard a definition of a boundary a couple years ago that, like, made it so much easier for me to understand what they are and
Yeah,
implement them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this is from Prentis Hemphill. She's an author, and she was on a podcast, and she said that the definition of a boundary is the closest distance at which I can love both you and myself.
Ooh,
Right?
yeah.
To me, that is, I literally picture it as here is this person and here is me and here's the thing that's irritating me or here's the solution to the irritation. Where do I put it? Where feels
Mhm,
good? Where is
mhm,
the point of integrity for
mhm,
you and for me?
mhm, mhm. I like that.
It's a really good one.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, I like
also
that.
want to say what a boundary isn't. I do this in parenting a lot. I make a request and I call it a boundary,
Mm,
which is don't text me after 9 p.m.
yeah, yeah,
But that's
yeah,
not a boundary. I don't have control over when people text me. That gives them
yeah,
control. That gives them the power of whether or not I'm okay. And that's not being in love with myself, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
boundary is I won't respond to texts after 9 p.m. The
Yes.
other person can do whatever they want. I have to
Yep.
maintain control of the solution. It has to be something that only involves my response. Otherwise, I'm just controlling another person and calling it a
Yeah.
boundary.
Yeah, so I literally just saw, like a Facebook reel or something,
Mhm,
this morning, and it said, "I don't care about your boundaries." And I was like, "What?" And so I clicked it because, of
mhm,
course, we're having this conversation today, right?
mhm.
So I was like, "What is she saying?" And she's like, "I don't care about your boundaries." She goes, "I care about my boundaries. We are responsible for our own." And I was like, "Oh, that's what she's like." She's not talking about going and violating other people's boundaries, right? But that boundaries, we create boundaries not for others, but we create them for
Yes,
ourselves.
to make ourselves
Yeah,
safe.
right. And we are the ones who are responsible for keeping those boundaries. because we can't control what other people do. And they're gonna do them, right?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
growing up, I struggle to say, like, we were enmeshed, but we really were as kind of a family, and we really kind of had that conversation of that is, like, super healthy and all of those pieces until I had children of my own, and my children got older,
Yeah.
right? And they had to start doing their own lives.
Mhm.
And as they were adolescents, had to practice what that meant to like, what that meant to who they were becoming and all of those pieces. And I realized, "Oh, um, yeah, there were no boundaries there," right?
Boundaries.
And how detrimental that could be, right? And then realizing that when I was starting to create that I would just consistently give absolutely everything that I had because there was no boundaries around me. They knew that mom would just give, 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 give,
Yes.
give, and it didn't make a difference, right? That she would continue doing that until she was blowing up or until she was exhausted and you know what I mean? And then starting to learn of okay, so what is a boundary and how do I operationalize it is still a path that we're on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think people think that, sometimes I feel that people think that boundaries are just this like rigid thing, but the boundary line actually changes depending on for me. And what I mean by that is I'm exhausted, I'm going to bed, don't bother me. Right? Everything is off. I'm super exhausted. So, we have this kind of boundary space. But, like, the other night, Jeremiah had prom, and so it didn't make a difference that I was tired. I stayed up to make sure that he made it home safely because we all know kids driving, junior
Yeah.
prom,
Yeah.
you never know what that's gonna look like. Kind of make sure and I'm here at any moment that you need. So, my phone is on. You call me, I will come and get that. And that's what I mean by that, like, most people think that boundary is like, "Okay, I'm exhausted, so I'm going to
Right.
bed, so don't bother me." It's not like a fence line.
Yeah, it's you're in charge of it. And I think
Yeah.
when people it can sound selfish, right? Like, I'm tired, my phone is completely off, my earplugs are in, I'm going to bed. And it's like, oh, but all of this life is still happening. And it can, I think, especially if you're a people pleaser, it can feel selfish and it can be perceived as selfish. What I've
Mhm.
had to learn is that I'm such a better friend, worker, wife, mom, person in the grocery store line if I adhere to my boundaries and take care of myself, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that actually, if it's selfish, then I'll be selfish because
Mhm.
it's going to help me show up in a better way, right? And
Yeah.
I think, like, I grew up in a very codependent environment. And we've given this definition before. I think Melody Biotti's definition of codependence is amazing. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize what it meant until I had children. And that
Mhm.
definition is it's an environment in which you actively protect people from the consequences of their own actions.
Mhm.
Right? And to me, that is also unboundaried. I will
Mhm.
step in and I will, and let's just give like a really simple example of this, right? Like, I never let my older kids miss school because they slept in. I would wake up early, make all of the breakfast, do all of the household things, and then I would very gently and slowly wake them up. Hey, you have 15 minutes left before you need to get in the shower. I still kind of do this. And
Yeah.
their dad would always be like, you are not letting them prepare for real life. You're not like they need to be able to wake themselves up. Like, if they're in high school, they should be able to
Yeah.
wake themselves up and get themselves ready. And when I finally relented and started letting them do that, if they overslept, if they missed the bus, I would literally save them. I would, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, let's get you there on time. Here's a sandwich, eat it in the car, get your shoes on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Now, this is a very basic example. Are they still fine
Yeah.
adults? Of course they are. But if I had had boundaries at that time, I would be able to say, you know, I I didn't it's not my fault you got up late or that you
Mhm.
overslept. That's your fault. The consequences of that is that you are running late and you need to feel those so that you adjust your own internal boundaries in the future. Like I was
Mhm.
creating an environment where they couldn't build boundaries themselves
Yeah.
because I was violating it and I was saving them from the anxiety of having that happen or the negative effect of having that happen. And like you said, when you look back is when you realize you need a boundary, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm never allowing my children to feel those things, or if I'm never telling my partner, hey, you really hurt my feelings when you did that, or when you're late, it causes me this, right? I'm not
Mhm.
even giving them the opportunity to set boundaries and adhere to boundaries. I'm
Yeah.
doing it for everyone, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And I think that's in this boundary discussion is we're giving all of it, right? We're doing all of that. The boundary is for our well-being,
Yes.
right? Now, I mean, it is for their well-being too, as well, especially when they're with children.
Mhm.
Um, but that I think that goes for anybody at all,
Absolutely.
to understand what that actually feels like. But still the ultimate piece is the boundary is ours. This is where I have realized I can handle
Mhm.
without giving so much of myself that I don't have anything left for myself.
It's the part where, and I can love myself. It's so easy for me to set a boundary that loves the other person. It's
Absolutely.
very hard for me to set a boundary and I also love myself
Yeah.
because that usually means pulling back my contribution.
Yeah.
And that can be
Yeah.
very hard to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
there's so much in this conversation because we're talking about little tiny pieces and parts of parenting and relationships
Mhm.
and also you and I both have a lot of experience with way bigger boundaries that need to be held, right? Like
Mhm.
I have no contact with my ex-husband. And that's a
Mhm.
much bigger boundary than my
Mhm.
kids need to set an alarm to get out of school in the morning. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot more time and a lot more harm for me to come to a boundary of, I don't care if you reach out to me, I will not respond. I will not interact
Yeah.
with you. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's also part of the hard part of boundary conversation is the harm happens in so many different levels
Yeah.
and over
Yeah.
long periods of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and boundaries can be something super simple and they can be super complex. The hard part about boundaries, no matter how much goes into it though, holding them. Yeah, and not because our automatic response a lot of the times, especially when you've not grown up, even understanding what a boundary is,
Yes.
and when you're implementing them as an adult, it feels so counterintuitive. It
Mhm.
does feel like it's almost like it's harm for other people, and so I had to realize, in learning about boundaries, because 1, I had to learn what a boundary even was. "What do you mean I don't have boundaries? What do you mean?" Like, and then I'm like, oh, you're right. I don't have any boundaries, and this is, like, literally people within the last decade. So if I have listened before, we just went through our recovery kind of stories. You know that recovery was already going on for 10 years working on it things, but boundaries was literally the last piece to it that is still I'm still trying to figure out. And my husband has had a lot of help in that. Um because I didn't even recognize that there weren't boundaries with myself. I just thought, well, of course we're exhausted. We're moms,
Yeah.
right? Like it's become so normalized just to be absolutely exhausted, to have so much on your plate, to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed," that I didn't even think of what was contributing to that,
Or that you had a
right?
say in it.
or that I had a say in it, or that I was actually doing more harm than I was doing good
Mhm.
when it comes to my kids and not having boundaries, especially my youngest, because of his ADHD and his anxiety, he needs solid guardrails. And yeah, he that actually is what makes him feel safe. That's what actually helps him. That's what helps him grow. And where I thought I was caregiving and being a good mom and all of giving everything of myself, it was actually doing more harm than it was good for him, right? And so when I started thinking, okay, well, what does that actually mean to me? First of all, my recovery is so much better now than it was before this, right? Is recognizing like, oh, this actually is super dysregulating and I can have like this much, of it. I can't have the full entire thing, but I can do a piece of it or a portion of it, right? But then I need to rest. I need to do something else. It has just made me so much more emotionally stable and healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's interesting because when I got diagnosed with PTSD and we started going through um, the sensory, and I should say I have CPTSD. I always say PTSD, but I have CPTSD. And we started going through the what that means in a sensory setting. And I had obviously no idea that not everyone reacted to overwhelm the way that I reacted to overwhelm. And some of the things that I started to recognize were that noises and lights and being startled, all of those things were activating my CPTSD and causing huge
Mhm.
amount of overwhelm and shutdown. And so
Mhm.
when I started putting boundaries around my sensory intake, I started demanding in my house that more lights are shut off and that it's darker.
Mhm.
I started wearing noise reducing headphones or earplugs when I leave the house. I started demanding that the volume be turned down. Had to have a really intense conversation with my daughter of you can no longer sneak up behind me and scare me. My
Mhm.
nervous system cannot handle being scared like that, and you're doing it on purpose because you think it's funny because it's so easy to scare me. And
Mhm.
those things, when I started getting really, really adherent to those things and refusing to go to the grocery store very often,
Yeah. Yeah.
I am such a better person. I am like
Yes.
calm and I can have better conversations. I'm not screaming and yelling at people. And when I think about how long I lived with CPTSD and didn't know it and was allowing, I knew that loud noises and bright lights irritated me, but I just thought I was weird and too sensitive. And when I think about all of the time that I lived with those things, and I would fly off the handle at the tiniest provocation, that
Mhm.
is a form of having no boundaries and no love for
Mhm.
yourself. And the harm extends to other people, right? My kids, my older kids, when they were young, were like bearing the brunt of
Yeah.
living with this
Yep.
undiagnosed, completely out of control person.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think of also because a lot of times we just don't like the words. So sometimes when we can just do different words. But you've used in the past guardrails. Um, instead of boundaries, I really think of them as like, what kind of thing do I need to enact in order to create space?
Yeah,
Right? And a lot of times it's a boundary. That's what that
it
is,
is.
right? It's a rule, it's a guardrail. It is whatever that kind of looks like. Now, there are times that it moves according to the situations, but keeping the understanding that this is here for my best good, right? This is what allows me to be the best person that I can be with all of these other pieces around it. Like yesterday I was taking the boys, um, Jason and his friend home. Both of them have an extremely high energy, so then together it is like triple fold, and then Jason has some alternative music on that the bass is really thing, and they're going back and forth, and I was like, "Oh, done." I was like, "That's boys, done. We're gonna play the quiet game, and whoever can be quiet the longest gets $5." And I was like, "My brain is about to explode. Music has to go down. We need to like, I'm about there." I wouldn't have even known what that felt like
Yes.
years ago.
100%.
To be able to to be able to say, "Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I'm about my brain is it's full."
Yeah.
Like, that's the common sentence in our house is, "My brain is full. I'm at capacity.
And
So
give me
give me a
time.
minute."
Not
Yeah.
only would I not have been able to recognize that years ago, I mean, I would have known that I was about to lose it, but I would not have known why. And
Yeah.
all I would have felt was guilt and shame for not being good enough.
Yes.
Why can't
Yep.
I handle my own children? Why can't I handle going
Yep.
to the grocery store? Why can't I handle overhead lighting? Like, what is wrong with me? It was never about, well, this just is, and let's create the
Yeah.
conditions where you can thrive. It was always
Yeah.
guilt and shame. I'm not
Yeah.
right. Something's wrong with me. And, this we're getting into territory that's like broader and bigger than boundaries, but boundaries is a huge part of being able to manage yourself, right? And
Yeah.
being an adult and being able to say, okay, I'm about to lose my cool. I'm going to need everyone to just give me some space. That is so important for our kids to hear us say, to instead of bottling it up and then having it
Mhm.
come out sideways at dinner or something like that,
Mhm.
to be able to acknowledge it, expand the space for it, and give yourself permission to help yourself through it. That
Mhm.
kids might not realize that that's boundary making, but they will start to engage in that behavior and be more boundary naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of, like, how did I operationalize boundaries, right? Like, I can see just when I didn't have any boundaries, I didn't know the effect until it was, had some kind of negative effect. Now that I have kind of the boundaries there, it was like thinking, "Okay, so how did I do that?" Right? Because it really was I felt like starting from 0. One, I had to give myself permission that I even could set the boundary.
Yeah.
And, um, 2, I had to start small and practice
With safe people.
because I couldn't really with save people and honestly with myself first.
Mhm.
And so I before I was even able to move it to other people, I had to learn what it was like to hold myself accountable to my own boundaries that I had set.
Yes.
Yeah. So, like, the boundaries were all about me. They weren't about what I gave to others. They were all about what I gave to myself,
Yeah.
right? Or what I allowed for myself or what I didn't allow for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when the where I really recognized that, oh girl, you have no boundaries, is when I was in prison and I was able to get a good zoomed out view of my life. And so when I came home, I had read a lot, I had listened to a lot of podcasts, I knew a lot more about boundaries. And so I knew that I needed to start implementing them. So I did, I would say, rationalize them in a couple ways. With myself, for sure. I really started with my adult kids and friends.
Mhm.
I still have sort of a dual life, I will say, with boundaries, where with some people, I'm very good at them and I
Mhm.
feel very safe and comfortable saying, no, I don't have meetings on Monday, or no, I'm not going to have the bandwidth. My social battery is really low right now. Like I can say that
Yeah.
to some people and feel very, very safe. I have a group of people that I really struggle to set boundaries with, probably because there's so much history there. I fall into old habits without even realizing it. It's very subconscious,
Mhm.
right? And so, but the one thing that I have recently started doing that has been revolutionary for me, because I'm not very good at setting boundaries with some people. I used to, if I would get a text message or an email that I knew probably needed a boundary, but I didn't know what to do, I would send it to everyone. I would forward it to all my trusted friends and be like, look at this. What should I say? What should
Yeah.
I do? I would like create this whole drama about it. Recently, I have started, if I get something that doesn't sit right with me, and I know that it probably requires a boundary, I also know that I'm unable to do it. And it's
Mhm.
because I don't trust myself to uphold it. I have
Mhm.
been holding on to that, not responding right away, which is huge for me. So it is a little bit of
Mhm.
a boundary that I'm doing of like, I'm not going to answer this right away. I take it to therapy and I say, my new brain knows that my old brain cannot handle this. I need some help. Can you show me, help me talk through what the new Jaelene wants to do here? And it's like
Yeah.
this very meta experience of like, new Jaelene knows this bad. Old Jaelene
Yeah.
wants control, must find help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have designated my therapist to be that person. I don't screenshot anymore. I go to someone and say, help me do this with my new brain. And it's been
Yeah.
really, really hard, but incredibly liberating. This
Yeah,
is
that's
like
so boundary.
an active process that I'm implementing. I am in the middle of doing this right now.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's so boundaried.
Yeah.
You have yeah, you have structure
Yes.
around it,
Yes.
right? I think people think, boundaries are always things that we don't want,
Yeah.
right? Like we only instill them for things that we don't want. I don't I look at it in the way of what do I want and what needs to be in place so that I have that feeling, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I like to be regulated. I like to feel like I have capacity.
Yes. That's so interesting because as soon as you said that, I was like, well, that's exactly the conversation we have about it in my therapist with my therapist. She always asks me, okay, what do you want this relationship to be like? What will
Mhm.
feel good for this relationship? She never asks
Mhm.
me, what do you not want? She always says, how can this feel good? What would feeling good
Mhm.
look like? And that's how we structure it. And I think I'm like thinking out loud here, guys. Don't really know. But I think what she's trying to do is in that definition of the closest distance at which I can love you and myself, she is trying to help me understand what loving myself looks like. And it
Yes.
is so hard because what that means is I have to move usually away from the other person a little bit. And
Mhm.
I want them to know that I still love them. And I'm
Mhm.
scared that the moving away will be interpreted as you don't love me.
Mm.
And that feels uncomfortable. And I'm still, I am, that's probably one of my biggest struggles right now
Yeah.
is I still love you.
Yeah.
I just also need to love myself.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. And it is that space for ourselves and
Yeah.
having that take the priority over someone else.
Oh,
For some of us that have exactly that have been raised that is honestly not acceptable.
yeah.
That's a really hard space to be in. That's
Yeah.
a really hard space to be in. And I'm watching, my youngest daughter just became a mom this past year, and I'm watching her make the same mistakes that I made with not taking care of myself,
Yeah.
with giving all of myself. She's exhausted. All I want to do is, can I please just take the baby and will you please just
Go to
sleep?
sleep.
And I get it because I was there,
Mhm.
right? And honestly, she probably came by it honestly because she's watched it, right? That's what I've always done. She watched me growing up doing that over and over again. And unfortunately for my children, I didn't learn this until my youngest was, 8, 9 years old kind of thing. And so practicing the boundaries with my children has literally been like the last 5 years,
Yes.
piece to it. And so it's like it's so infuriating to me that although that's not what I wanted to model,
Mhm.
right? That's what I did.
Mhm.
And it breaks my heart
Yes.
because at some point we have to learn this. And it's kind of like when we have the recovery conversation and when I worked with teenagers and they were going through substance use and self-harm and those kinds of pieces I said and they were like 14, 15 years old and I would always say to them you're so lucky to be going through this right now. And they would look at me like I had three heads. And I know that I've said this before, but
Yeah.
it was like you're learning this now. It's easier to learn as a teenager and it's easier to learn as a young adult than it is to learn when you're 40 and 50 and you've been practicing this
Percent.
for so very long. And, but it is something you have to learn because it will take you out.
Yes.
You
Yes.
cannot continue to give at that level. You just can't. You have to be able to, put yourself first as far as being able to have enough capacity to be the person that you wanna be in relationship with
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote something down about our forgiveness episode when we were talking about sorry means you'll change, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what it feels like to not get an apology from someone. And how do
Mhm.
you deal with the other person not taking accountability and not being sorry or whatever? It kind of ties these two together. I believe a lot of people can't apologize and change because they don't have the self compassion for themselves. And it's really shameful and feels shame inducing to have to say, I'm sorry I did this thing. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have a lot of compassion for that. I have a lot of compassion when I see someone that I know struggles with feeling shameful because I know
Mhm.
what shame feels like. It's so debilitating inside. And
Mhm.
so I have
Mhm.
a lot of compassion in that. And in the past, the compassion that I have for that other person who I know will feel shame if I ask them to have an honest conversation about what's happened, that has overruled my inner voice that says, I can't do this anymore. This relationship is
Mm.
harmful to me. And I think that's
Mhm.
why forgiveness has been so activating for me, is because
Mhm.
I have abandoned my own boundary and needs because I have so much compassion for the fact that you can't feel shame.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to navigate a boundary that
Mhm.
allowed me to stay in my compassion and allowed me to speak up for myself. I I
Yeah.
think that's why forgiveness has been so hard for me, is
Mhm.
because boundaries are so hard for me,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think for me, really, it is just so many times these concepts, boundaries, forgiveness, they're weaponized.
Yeah.
And, I mean, them thinking of the times that boundaries, the concept of boundaries were used in an abusive manner, right? And, and they were bastardized when having the conversation around them that I almost looked at and not almost, I did look at boundaries as something harmful to
Yes.
others.
Yes.
And having to and the same thing with forgiveness, right? And a lot of the times the harm wasn't to other people that the forgiveness was, but the harm was to myself.
Oh,
And so those two concepts have always they're they have been used together, they've been weaponized together. They've almost been used interchangeably sometimes as far as, like, um, well, this was my boundary and you crossed it, and so now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, piece to it. I think that's why it's so difficult to. I think it's why it's so uncomfortable to have the conversation sometimes around forgiveness and boundaries,
Yeah.
um, because so many people have experienced that way,
Yes.
right? That if we can look at what does this mean in our lives that actually makes our lives better.
I'm thinking about you and I have talked a lot about how when we're setting boundaries, what we've realized is that we're over indexing on the comfort of the other person and under indexing on our own comfort. I would
Yeah.
really love to have a conversation with someone that is the opposite, that over indexes on taking care of themselves and under indexes on the other people, that maybe their boundaries are too tight. I don't know if that's the right word, or
Yeah,
too
rigid.
rigid, that it's the opposite. I would just love to like pick that apart and have like a
Mhm.
thoughtful conversation about what does that look like for you and what does that feel like and how do the people around you react to that? Because where for you and I, when we're setting boundaries, it's like a closing in a little bit and removing
Mhm.
from. I wonder what it feels like to have a boundary be opening up and moving towards. And I'm trying to think of a time that I've been in that and
When I have. Well, there's when I looked so times when I think of, like, emotional walls,
Mhm.
right? As far as there are a lot of times that I have I have certain processes so that nobody can hurt me, right? Where I have had to actually open up a space to allow someone to come in because those walls were not only was it not letting them hurt me, that's good, but it was also not you can't you can't go through, right? Like you both ways it kind of cuts you off. And so um being able to find boundaries around safety
Yeah.
that allow for somebody to come into my space and it be um, and it be for my best,
Yeah.
right? Instead of that kind of closing off. When Todd and I first got together, we were both so hyper independent, so hyper independent, which is definitely a trauma response. However, um, like I would get up to go get a glass of water and he would be empty. I said, "Would you like me to fill it?" He's like, "No, it's all right. I'll get it." Or, "No, it's okay, I don't need anything," and then he would get up 5 minutes later and fill up his own. I'm like, "Dude, I'm legitimately up, right? Like, I can do this for you." But I did the exact same thing. And so and to me, that was that boundary. I held it so close.
Yeah.
Nothing can get in, nothing is going out because, that is what makes me feel the safest in the moment. It is a little dysregulating to move that boundary closer to the other person in this conversation, um, so that there's still space in both sides, right? So, I think you have.
Yeah.
You just probably maybe didn't look at it that way because
Well,
I've watched you with your
that's
husband.
that's why I'm making this space right now because I'm like, shit. I have done that, and I don't wanna talk about it because I still have a lot more space to go there right now, and being hyper independent feels, very safe to me, as right?
Absolutely.
As anyone that's been through.
And it's incredibly exhausting.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
just am not, and I you are right, that is absolutely 100%, I have done that, and I am really actively working on lowering the temperature on the hyper independence, but that is an area that will have to also come later because I'm just not there yet.
absolutely.
I'm just not there yet.
Yeah,
But I am
yeah, and I
with
think what
the perfect person to do it with.
yes, yeah, and, I definitely think it is a full entire episode on becoming interdependent.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
moving from hyper independent to
It's
interdependent,
very
that's
hard.
a
Yeah.
whole Yeah, that might be a couple
Yeah,
episodes.
seriously. It's just so interesting. And we touched on this at the beginning that boundaries are so integral to relationships that they
Yeah.
they go from what time I will answer a text and how I deal with my daughter and her apps all the way to deep deep relationships, deep deep
Yeah.
feelings, love, forgiveness. And so I would encourage people to look at boundaries as a spectrum. I don't think
Mhm.
when someone says, even when I say at the beginning of this, I'm bad at boundaries, yet we've had different conversations today where some boundaries I am actually really good at, and some boundaries I
Mhm.
am still working on. And so I think I'm walking away from this no longer saying I'm bad at boundaries, just saying that there are some areas of my life where I could be more boundaried and some areas that I'm really good at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do we want more of in
Yes.
our life instead of less of,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Creating the boundary to create more of what we want
Yeah.
in our life.
Yeah. I think it's like
I love it.
boundaries are kindness in friendships. It's like communication is kindness in relationships, right? If you want to have a relationship with me, I'd like to have one with you, and this is how we do it. This is the fence around our playground, so to speak. And
Yep.
if we can stay in it, we're gonna have a great time together.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's honestly how I look at it with my with my kiddos too,
Yeah.
as it used yeah.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was worried about this conversation
Me too. I thought I was gonna cry,
of where it
which
was gonna go.
I almost did, but I like
Yeah.
shoved it down in me and was like, save that for the shower, Jaylene. It's my favorite place to
See,
cry.
that's the part of expansive boundaries that we're trying to create within our systems to allow those feelings. Oh my gosh, I love it. Did we close this out?
I think so. I think we've said the
Okay.
things to say. Okay. Love you. Mean it.
I love you.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us this week and our episode on boundaries. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with the final episode of season 1. We'll be doing a season recap and giving you a preview into what season 2 will look like. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great week.